I will be joined by a journalist whose courage and commitment to truth-telling in conflict zones has inspired many across the globe. Gadija Davids was aboard the Mavi Marmara in 2010 when Israeli forces raided the humanitarian flotilla bound for Gaza. That experience not only made international headlines, but profoundly impacted her journey as a journalist. Today, as the world watches the devastating toll on journalists in Gaza with over 200 media workers killed, we ask, what does it mean to be a journalist under fire? And how do we, as South Africans in media, stand in solidarity with our colleagues in Gaza and to the people of Palestine in general? Gadija, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Shukran so much for your time and for inviting us. It's such an important topic as well. Shukran.
Definitely. I think you are one of the best people to be speaking with on this topic. If you can just briefly take us back to that day on the Mavi Marmara. What was going through your mind during the raid? How did you experience reshape your approach to journalism, particularly when it comes to Gaza, and how you view what's happening in that part of the world?
Well, at the time, of course, that aid ship was going to Gaza because of Operation Cast Lead, in which the Israeli entity had killed hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza. So that aid was going there for that reason. So the journalists on board the Mavi were journalists covering a humanitarian mission. And for some reason, the Israeli entity thought, do you know what? These are terrorists on board the ship. Any aid that's going to Gaza is an act of terror. It's going to assist the so-called terrorists in Gaza. So that's what we knew going in. But because it was a humanitarian aid ship, there were no weapons on board. We thought, you know what, they may give us some hassle, but we'll get to Gaza. And yet on the morning of the 31st of May, around Fajr, it was around 4 or 5 o'clock, they boarded. And what I saw afterwards was blood on the wall. People that I'd shared the space with for so many days were injured or were martyred. My belongings were searched. As a media, the only thing they let me take was my passport. My recording material, my phone, all of that was taken. We were seen as threats. We were held hostage on board that ship. We were taken to a place we didn't need to be. We were going to Gaza. They kept saying, we're taking you to Ashdod. We were kidnapped. Then we were imprisoned. And I think for journalists, we were treated the same as the activists. And your earlier guest was also saying, I mean, you're referring to it, journalism is activism, but it took a whole other level with this aid ship. And because it was an international event, there were so many people from different countries. I think finally people could understand what it meant to be under occupation. It was for a brief time. I mean, Palestinians have been going through it for 7 decades. But for us to see it firsthand, to see how young these soldiers were, the kind of psychological kind of trauma or kind of psychological torture that they were put us through. I mean, they blocked the suctions on the boat. So if you wanted to use the bathroom, it was not a clean space to be in. We were denied access to water. We couldn't talk. It was those kinds of things. You had to beg, you had to plead. And then even when they took us, when we got to Ashdod, it was, they tease you, they dehumanize you. It was constant on every level. So for me, I was quite young at the time, to see that firsthand, alhamdulillah, I survived, but I got a taste of what it means to be a Palestinian.
And how did surviving that violent encounter impact you? Both personally and also professionally? Did it almost shift your understanding of the risks and responsibilities of being a journalist and operating in this space?
It did, and I think fortunately enough, because I work for a radio station that has Palestine so close to its heart, I never felt that whatever I was experiencing would be kind of sidelined. It was almost, I wouldn't say celebrated, but it was almost a badge of honor to say, you know what, you got to experience what the Palestinians experienced. It kind of gave me an even louder voice, a more firm voice, in order to kind of be that voice for Palestinians, although, of course, South Africans are going through their own kinds of struggles. But I think the Palestinian issue has always been that symbol of this struggle against oppression. And I think that is what guides us through everything that we do as journalists and journalists at Radio 786, is that is what motivates us. We're going through a hardship now. We're struggling to get a guest, but you know what? The Palestinians in Gaza are going through so much worse. Let's bring it back. Let's understand what it is. And then that helps us through as well. Of course, the past 2 years have been, we can't understand, we have been confronted with so much trauma, violence, and we can't even understand or fathom exactly what it is that we are seeing. When you start seeing people picking up body parts and people's martyrs' bodies are being brought out in bags, for Palestinian journalists covering those things, you were reporting on a story that's about your people, it's about your neighbor. And I think for them, that's why I have so much respect for them as well, because through all of that, they're still going out every day and reporting what they can with the limited resources that they have. So yeah, it really puts things into perspective for us.
And, with the numbers that we're seeing almost on a daily basis of journalists being killed, the story of Ahmed Abu Mansour is one that I think has caught everyone not by surprise, but shocked them that you could have journalists, human beings, maybe I can put it that way, because you are a human before you're a journalist, literally being burnt alive. How do you process this reality, especially knowing the dangers firsthand and being so close to the perpetrators of this kind of violence?
I thought about this. It's for a Palestinian and you're a journalist, you know that this is a risk you're taking. And you will continue to live your life to report on these atrocities. And that is part of your activism and part of how you are helping your people to build this case against the US-backed Israeli entity. So of course, the violence and the nature of this particular martyrdom was very shocking, but I don't think, as you said, it's not unexpected, because the Israeli entity has been targeting journalists. And they knew exactly where they were. They knew it was a tent used by journalists, and they targeted anyway. So for me, I was thinking about these little girls who, I can't remember their names now, but they're two little girls who are journalists. They do reporting from Gaza. And you're so young, but you understand that your voice and sending out these videos are part of protecting your people. It's about raising awareness, about saying to people, you can't ignore this anymore. You can't say you don't know what is happening here. So that talks to their bravery as well. So for Palestinian journalists, I take my hat off to them. I am so proud to say that we are colleagues, but of course they are on another level. I was thinking about them during Ramadan as well. You're reporting, you have no access to food. The Israeli entity cut off the food to Gaza. You don't have access to water, electricity, your basics. Yet they were continuing, they were fasting, and they were still reporting. And I think they are the best kind and the best kind of journalist.
And just in closing, Gadija, I would like to bring it back home to, the journalists and just the general media landscape here in South Africa and how we've responded to this genocide. How do you assess the work that's being done by media institutions here in South Africa when it comes to educating, trying to raise awareness on this genocide and the solidarity with Palestinian journalists and people as a whole?
At the start of around October 7th, 2023, we saw the split in what was mainstream media and what was alternative media. We saw who was influenced by the Zionists and who wasn't. And that was when you saw the kind of coverage that we got about the start of that genocide, the kind of language that was used. So you could see where the Zionist influence was. And unfortunately, many media houses are being muzzled by that Zionist lobby. So they need to find ways, and I think it really comes from all levels. And I know it's your bread and butter, you can't help it. You still are being told what to do by an editor or by whatever the editorial policy is at your media institution. But there needs to be further activism, I think, to try and get to properly label this genocide for what it is, to report on it for what it is. And I think it's so difficult as well to see just how far it goes. You see the influence of advertisers, for an example. I'm going to take it beyond journalism and look at the universities and how they've been struggling. Here in Cape Town, UCT has been facing a very strong kind of actions from the Zionist lobby saying we're going to cut your funding if you are going to continue with your pro-Palestine kind of stances that the institution has been taking. And just seeing how far the Zionist lobby is going to influence you, and it's through money. So when you understand your power as a media practitioner, just a consumer, if you understand that if you do not buy this product, you are not supporting genocide, and you are showing these occupiers and these people who support genocide that you have no power because I'm taking it back and I'm on the side of, the oppressed. So for the work that you do, try in any way that you can to get that message through. And then in your personal life as well as a journalist, be part of that boycott campaign. I mean, how can you feel okay drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola when you know that that money goes towards assisting the Israeli regime? So these are the kinds of things that I think we need to do. And once you do it, you internalize it and you make it part of yourself. I think that will also come through in how you report on things.
No, definitely. Gadija, thank you so much for chatting to us. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and kudos for the wonderful work that you're doing also. We're going to leave it here for now, and looking forward to chatting to you again in the not so distant future.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. That was Gadija Davids. Yeah, I think she tells a story that only a few of us can imagine, being that close to the IDF, being a victim of the impunity.